Right now, right now. 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 Oh, I got a real good feeling.
We try to bring you high-quality educational and informational content every single day. Why do you think the price is having such an anemic time? The news story of the hour. Jump onto the chart. Is this the beginning of a massive financial unraveling? We got to add a little addendum to the show map today. Shall we start here on the daily? Now, we've been looking at the RSI on Bitcoin's daily chart for the last several days. It always has been, but it's been increasing over the last 50 years since the government has been bigger. Hey guys, what's going on? Jeb here, and welcome back to Coffee and Crypto Live. This is your week daily morning show where we bring you the latest in everything Bitcoin and cryptocurrency. And in today's episode, we are going to be talking about a major sell-off that is happening right now in Bitcoin and in U.S. equities. As you will know, Bitcoin has dropped down to approximately $86,900 as of this morning. This is a movement that we have been forecasting over the last about 24 hours, ever since Bitcoin rejected off of the critical resistance architecture at 94,000. When we rejected off of 94,000, as you can see right here, we started saying that, look, if Bitcoin cannot get above 94,000, this level right here, then what's going to happen is Bitcoin is most likely going to go down and it's going to start filling large players' bids, which sit down at around $60,000 to $75,000. Here's the deal. On October the 13th, when Bitcoin was trading at 115,000, we told you on this channel it would go to $94,000 to $100,000. There's a possibility it could hold at 100,000 because of the architecture, because of the sentiment of Bitcoin being over six figures. But technically speaking, Bitcoin was aiming at 94,000. That is the exact level that we hit right here. As you can see, we bounced off of it last Friday. The issue is this was a dead cat bounce if ever one has been seen, and Bitcoin fell right below 94,000. And right here on X, I told you that if Bitcoin does not break above $94,000, then it would be catastrophic for the price of Bitcoin. A couple days later, Bitcoin is down 7%. And today we're going to be talking about this movement. We anticipated that Bitcoin would hold 94,000, and then it didn't. So what did we get wrong? Why did Bitcoin not hold 94,000? I would love to talk about that with you today. If you're new here, welcome to the stream. I am so excited to be going over this analysis with you. And before we get started, I want to point something out. There are a lot of people hurting right now. There are a lot of people that are very scared. They've gotten liquidated. They've lost a lot of money. You might be one of them. I want to put my cards on the table. Our portfolio, I haven't gotten liquidated at all. Like, we don't play that way. We just don't ever put ourselves in a position to get liquidated. We haven't gotten liquidated, but on paper, our portfolio in 45 days is down well over $250,000. So I understand, right? I get it that you're going through pain. We're going through pain. But what we've got to do is we have to flip the script, and we've got to say, wait a second. How do wealthy people see this move? What are they doing about this? What is the consensus among people that have 10 times, 50 times, 100 times more money than I do? I mean, bottom line, like I'm kind of strong, but I'm not your your Arnold Schwarzenegger. If somebody walks into my house and they can bench press an elephant and they got a shredded six-pack abs, I'm gonna say, listen, what do you do? Like, I would love to learn from you. I'm strong, but I don't look like that. You know, I've got a little bit of belly under here, you know? I would love to learn from you. What do you know that I don't? You're way further ahead than I am. We need to do the same thing in finance. I'm here to tell you, it is mostly retail that is bleeding and panicking right now. It is not the people behind the scenes. And that's why yesterday we said, actually, since Bitcoin rejected off at 94, there's our technical confirmation. And then I'm also getting fundamental word from people behind the scenes that bids are lined up at 60 to 75,000. We flipped bearish yesterday. And I'm glad we did. Because just about as soon as we flip bearish right like in here somewhere in there. This is the result. And so we need to ask ourselves, before we even get into the analysis, which we're going to do a lot of analysis, we're going to do a ton of technical analysis today, ton of technical and fundamental analysis. Stay tuned. I got a lot lined up for you. Why is Bitcoin crashing like this? But more importantly, what do people with 10 times, 50 times, 100 times more money than I think? What do people with 100 million think? What do people with 500 million think? What do people with $1 billion think? That's the bottom line. And the words that I'm getting are very interesting because I'm hearing things like this. Worst case scenario, BTC only goes to 85K. That's a direct quote that I'm hearing from multiple people. Worst case scenario, Bitcoin only goes to 85K. That's their worst case scenario. Now listen, I know the whole like, oh, you know, I have sources thing is chalked up in the media as being the look. I'm just trying to tell you, this is what I'm hearing. I'm not trying to be some like, oh my gosh, I have the secret sauce. No, I'm trying to tell you that we have connections all over the industry. And basically all of them have the exact same mentality is, oh crap, we only went to 85. I was hoping we'd go to 70. That's the sentiment from people that have more money than you and people that have more money than me. And so if that's the sentiment is, oh crap, I was hoping we'd go lower than that, then maybe, just maybe, we should adopt the same mentality of, oh crap, we only went to 85. How do you get in that position? Well, you get in that position by doing what I've been telling you for years, which is that you need to be bear market proof at all times. You need to make sure that if Bitcoin drops 20% off all-time high, you're not getting liquidated and losing your whole net worth. You need to be careful with debt. You need to have an emergency fund. You need to have dry powder on the side to buy the dip. I'm building a bid order at 75,000, 76,000. Because if we drop down there, I would love to get Bitcoin. I would love to buy Bitcoin 40% off of all-time high. That's a dream for me. And you know what? It's a dream for most of the money makers out there. Most of the, not the money makers, most of the whales, right? These large money players. They're targeting down here at 85 on the 0.786 as being like worst case scenario, we only go here. Medium case scenario, we go to 75K. That's where a lot of bid is. And then like their best case scenario is Bitcoin goes to 60. They'd love to see Bitcoin go to 60 because then Bitcoin is 50% off. You get a 50% discount on Bitcoin before Bitcoin bounces off of 50 and rallies to 300. What you just did there is you 500% increased your wealth in like 3 years. This is what wealthy people are thinking right now. That's what they're thinking. That's what they're saying. That's how I'm thinking. That's how these people are thinking. Why do you think that the bottom is falling out from Bitcoin so fast like this? This is not something that I realized at the beginning. I will give this to you. This is something that I'm hearing ever since we dropped below 100. I'm like, because I remember you guys saw me on X saying, what is this 15-minute chart over here at 100,000? You guys will remember me talking about this on X. I'm like, what is going on here? You look at the 15-minute chart, I'm making memes about it. Look at this. This is not natural. 16, 15-minute red candlesticks in a row like that. This is a large player. I don't know which one. I'm trying to figure out which one. I'm asking around, trying to figure out who this was. But that was a large player exiting probably hundreds of millions, if not billions of dollars worth of Bitcoin, essentially going short. They're not pulling the money out of the market. They're sitting in stables. BTC.D is going down. You know why? Because it's going right here. It's going into Tether. It's going into stables. They stabled. Look at this. Stablecoin market cap on Tether is up like $6 billion in the last 2 months. They went to stables. I told you that it would go down to 94,000, and I also said that it's a possibility they would drop below it. Now, I did say there was a 10% chance we go to 75. With the new information I'm getting, I'm realizing that's more like 60%. That order at 100,000, this order up here at 100,000, right? And you can either see this or you don't. But I'm just trying to tell you what I'm hearing and what I'm seeing and what makes sense and just what the information I'm getting means. Look at these two cascading cells. This one and this one. That is not natural movement. That is not natural price action. And it was not necessarily a giant long squeeze either. When you go on CoinGlass, as far as I can remember anyway, there wasn't necessarily a gigantic long squeeze. There was some because we dropped below 100K, but it wasn't this massive long squeeze that would trigger Bitcoin to sell off $5,000 in 3 hours. These, I believe, now I don't have evidence of this, but just the way it looks and the way that I'm hearing things behind the scenes, I think that both of these were a large player liquidating a position because they're anticipating Bitcoin going down to 60 to 70. And so you started seeing a lot of people, like James Nguyen was talking about this, a lot of people talking about Bitcoin going like really, really low. And at first I'm like, I don't know, we're going to 94. I think we're going to bounce there. But after we rejected and hit our head on 94, I'm like, okay, wait a minute. These people, they were calling for this big drop. They probably had insider information that now I'm getting, which is that everybody who has money wants to buy lower. And so why is the floor falling out from Bitcoin? You want answers? I'll tell you. No one's buying here. They don't want to buy 13% off of all-time high. They've got the cash and they're ready to buy, but they're not buying here. Here's the thing. The large money is thinking this: the 4-year halving cycle. Everybody in retail, and this is not like some insider information. Like, it's not this big fancy thing. Like, oh, this one person told me this one company's going to do this thing. No, this is what exchanges are doing. I don't need to name it because I'm basically talking about every one of them. Right? This is what the whales are doing. It's basically all of them. Something you don't understand. Exchanges have their own long positions. They have their own buys. They have their own bids. They custody Bitcoin themselves to the tune of billions and billions and billions of dollars. It's not just your deposits that they hold their own assets, right? The institutions, the exchanges, they're not necessarily trying to screw you over, but they're just being smart the same way I'm trying to teach you to be smart. The 4-year halving cycle is so ingrained in people's mind that it becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy. Everybody panic sells in Q4 because October 6th was like perfectly timed to be the top of the bull market. It was like 1,064 days after the beginning of the market. It's perfect timing. So you've got this coordinated fear campaign that is just baked into the time cycles on Bitcoin. All you have to do at that point is set your bid really low and the market will fall down to meet it. And that's why Bitcoin's dumping here. And a lot of people don't want to hear it. And we could bounce higher. Like, I'm not necessarily saying that what's going on behind the scenes is even manipulation. I'm just saying that these big players are waiting and they're hoping for a bottom down around 75. And I am too, which is why I'm building a bid down at 76,000. Okay? So that's what I'm expecting. I'm expecting Bitcoin, if it doesn't get up above 94, to capitulate. We're most likely entering into a capitulation event. So, with that said, let's talk about the technical analysis, because there are some different things going on that could invalidate what I'm saying. The first is that on the daily chart, this is the most overextended bearish Bitcoin has been in a very long time, and this coincides with these bottoms. This is where it's still possible that Bitcoin finds its footing and rallies. It could do it. But what Bitcoin needs to do that is that Bitcoin needs to have a very bullish rest of the week. It needs to get its act in gear. It needs to get its butt in gear and get above 94,000 so that this is all a wick below 94,000. If it ends up being a V-bottom, that could happen. That could happen. Could happen. But this weekly candlestick needs to close above 94. This is like the last chance that I see the bulls of having a Bitcoin going into a major rally. And it could happen because there are a lot of support levels. Okay? There are a lot of support levels. But for example, this one here on the weekly chart RSI just broke. You know, we broke. You see that? Broke bearish. Theoretically, this is supposed to be bullish RSI divergence, right? And so that is possible, right? You see the bullish RSI divergence here? It's possible. If we get a bounce and we start rallying above 94, great. It could happen. It could happen. I'm fine with that. Don't mind. I do not mind. But here's also part of the problem. Okay? Let's talk about this. Why is that becoming less and less likely? Here's why. Bitcoin tracks very closely with the United States S&P 500. When we look at the S&P 500, you will see that Bitcoin tracks very close with it. Right? It's a very obvious correlation. Generally, actually, Bitcoin leads and it corrects before the S&P 500. SPY hits an all-time high here on Christmas of 2021. Bitcoin hit its all-time high a month earlier. Over here, Bitcoin hits its all-time high on January 13th. SPY hits its all-time high February 10th. Here, Bitcoin hit an all-time high October the 6th for the SPY, the SPY, the VOO, QQQ, all of them. That's been happening for a little bit longer. And what you need to understand is that ever since market open, we have seen a major crash on the stock market. Ever since the New York Open, stocks, SPY, dropped 2.59%. That's several $100 billion worth of value. And this is in the light of NVIDIA beating yesterday. This is not great. The earnings call came out. You guys probably saw this. Estimated was 55 billion. NVIDIA beat by 57 billion. This was bullish for markets. This was very bullish for markets. And guess what? NVIDIA gapped up and fell right back down 7%. NVIDIA added $205 billion worth of value and then crashed immediately. That's not a good sign for the United States stock market. It is starting to look like U.S. equities are moving into a sell-off. Bitcoin does not, it's really very simple. Bitcoin does not rally moving into a sell-off on U.S. equities. It just doesn't really ever happen. To prove it, we'll look at the chart and we'll see if I'm wrong. Let's try and find any time that Bitcoin is going through a major rally when U.S. equities are selling off. Look with me. Like, seriously, I don't really see anything. You see anything? You see any time where Bitcoin is divergent? If anything, it diverges in that it corrects before S&P. You see? Right? Sometimes Bitcoin's going down when S&P is going up, but we're not really seeing a lot of that inverse correlation where S&P is going down and Bitcoin's going up. There's not a lot of that. I mean, look, seriously, I'm trying to find some. You don't see much. You see Bitcoin go down while S&P 500 goes up, but there's not a lot of times that Bitcoin's going up in contradiction to what we see from S&P. It just doesn't really happen. And so if the S&P 500 is going to see a sell-off, Bitcoin, generally speaking, historically, has seen 3 to 4 times more of a sell-off. Are you tired of winning yet? That's really the question. Are you tired of winning? Are you tired of winning? Have you said thank you once? I mean, come on, guys. Oh, my goodness. Okay, so where do we go from here? Here's where we go. We got to watch stocks. We got to watch the 4-year halving cycle. I think the 4-year halving cycle is astrological nonsense, but here's the deal. Everybody's playing it. And so right now, as much as I think it's stupid, it's becoming a self-fulfilling prophecy. It makes no freaking sense, but it's becoming a self-fulfilling prophecy. That's what it's doing. And you see the dump happening right in front of us. Look at this. Bitcoin dove from 92 all the way down to 86 this morning. And I'm so glad for y'all's sakes that I was able to give you a good call. We flipped bearish like right back over here, and I watched Bitcoin climb up to 93. I'm like, if it breaks 94, we'll be wrong, but nope. Yeah. So, I mean, look at this gigantic crash on Bitcoin. Negative $5,600, 6% in 4 hours. That's definitely a crash. Dead cat bounce. Look at that. We rejected off of the 0.236. Sheesh. Okay, so Bitcoin is probably not done. It's probably going to go lower. This is why I've been telling you I don't think we're going into a bear market. Obviously, I was wrong on that. I don't think we're going into a bear market because the technicals didn't make sense. Now the fundamentals and the buy-side pressure is starting to make that make a lot more sense. I didn't think we were going into a bear market, but I always told you if we invalidated 90 to 94, we'd go into a bear market. That would be our confirmation, is that we would go into a bear market. And so with us moving in that direction, the issue now becomes, where do we fall? How far does Bitcoin drop? Okay, so we need to look at certain levels of support. The next major level of support on Bitcoin that we're probably going to visit relatively soon would be $85,200. This is 0.786 on the Fibonacci. The 0.786 is at $85,200, and this is not a very good look for Bitcoin if anybody's expecting still for Bitcoin to go into a major rally. Could it happen? Yeah, it could. But as you can see, the first major correction in this bull market, we dropped down to 0.382. This major correction, Bitcoin dropped down to 0.618, found a bottom perfectly. In this point in time, Bitcoin dropping below the 0.618 is a concern. This is why we said that Bitcoin needs to reclaim $94,000 and it needs to do it by the end of the week if we want to reclaim some bullishness. Could we do it? Yes. As I said, we're very overextended on RSI. I mean, RSI is at one of the lowest levels that we've been in a very long time. Fear and greed is in the gutter. But the bottom line is if Bitcoin does not close above 94,000, then we're probably going to continue moving into the downside. And so that's why, that's why we have been preparing ourselves, that saying, look, this is what we have to do as analysts. We have to say, this is what I think is going to happen, but I'm ready for both scenarios. This is how you trade profitably as well, is we say, I think that Bitcoin's going to go here. And if it does, I'll make $1,000. But if it goes past this line in the sand, that's my cutoff. That's my stop loss. For us, we are anticipating that Bitcoin would bounce at 94. We called 94 at 115. But we said, look, if we can't hold 94, then that means we're probably going to 75. And so now, as much as I think the 4-year halving cycle is dumb, we have to be logically consistent. And when Bitcoin did this overside underside test on 94,000, and then also with this information that I'm hearing about all this bid down at 60 to 75,000, then that does give us the place where we have to be logically consistent. Now let's talk about some fundamental data. Some of you guys are talking about in chat. Several fundamental pieces of data are coming out. Bureau of Labor Statistics did release October jobs reports. I think it was. Let's pull up that report. I saw it. The estimated was 4.3% unemployment. Actual was 4.4. So that's the highest level. Let me see if I can remember that. That's the highest level of unemployment reported from BLS since, I think, 2021. So let me see if I can find the actual data. Now, the number of jobs that were added was actually a beat. So it was a bit of a mixed data. There's a bit of mixed data. Let me see if I can find this. I saw it earlier. See if I can find it on X. I can probably find it over here pretty quick. Okay, here we go. This is September. Not what I'm looking for. Yeah. Adds 119,000 jobs in September. I'm sorry, I said October. I meant to say September. We added 119,000 jobs, which beat the forecast. Here we go. Here's a summary. The Bureau of Labor Statistics reported 119,000 non-farm payroll jobs added in September, far above economists' 50,000 jobs estimate, which is a strong gain. However, unemployment rose to 4.4% as the labor force grew faster than employment, hitting 7.6 million unemployed. Native-born workers saw net gains over year, while foreign-born employment fell. So this has been a report that people have been kind of scared by, because right now you have all of this fear moving in the market, and what you're seeing happen here is that this was a mixed bag of a report. It was somewhat bullish in the sense that we beat the number of jobs created, but it was somewhat bearish in the sense that unemployment rose. And so right now, when you're moving into bearish territory, both in Bitcoin and also, of course, in the SPY, because at least at the moment, there's this kind of just not necessarily scary correction yet, but there's this correction in US stocks, providing Bitcoin with a headwind. Pretty much any news that is not overtly bullish is bad news. And so when we saw that news come out, people took it as bearish, even though it actually was kind of a little bit of both. And so that is not good for the market at all. When the market is it's often a very strong signal that the market is in trouble when you are seeing some bullish news, some bearish news, and the market responds only to the bearish news. That's generally a bad sign. And so what we are witnessing right now is an event that is probably not going to conclude just yet, because there are, again, major headwinds. I do think at some point Bitcoin will find some kind of bottom, but I am not going to go out on a limb and try and figure out when exactly the timing is on that. I generally feel like sometime in the next few months we're going to drop down to 60 to 75, but it's not a technical level, it's a sentiment level. We were able to call $94,000 right here when we were right here. This is where Bitcoin went between our call and the fulfillment. We were able to make this call based on a technical level. So I was able to give you a down to the dollar level. And I mean, if you look on Coinbase here on the 5-minute chart, when we hit 94,000, we literally bounced exactly off of it. You can see right here on this wick here at 355. Look up here for the low. L means the low of the candle. The first time we hit it, we bounced exactly off of 94,000, right? But it's a little bit more difficult for me to give you an idea of where Bitcoin's bottom is going to be this time, because it's more so a range of bid. And so we just, at this point, we need to maintain a bearish, sentiment until we are proven otherwise. And so that's what we need to look at. So like I said, major bottom support that we're looking at right now is $85,000 as a result of the 0.786. But again, most people, myself included, are hoping that Bitcoin goes down to 75 so that we can fill some entries down there. Now, guys, let's go ahead and read some chat. Really appreciate all of you guys. Has Jeb even commented about the links of Epstein to Bitcoin, funding Bitcoin Core? I've been looking into that some. Here's the issue. Where I'm not really too concerned about that at all. Epstein was a monster. Like, let's get that out of the way first and foremost. Dude was a complete and utter psychopath and a monster from everything that I hear. From what I can tell, he was a complete and total monster. Don't want him or anyone that likes him anywhere near Bitcoin. I just want to make sure that's very clear. Do not want anybody who's mixed up in that kind of demonic, evil trash anywhere near Bitcoin. That said, for any improvement to go through on Bitcoin, you need, I think, 90% of the miners to approve it, which means this is an incredibly high plurality voting system. So you can, I don't want it anywhere near there, anywhere near Bitcoin. But it was probably not anywhere near Bitcoin at the founding. There may have been some influence there for a few years. That influence is probably not really there anymore as a result of all of this being blown up. And everybody, sees him for what he is now. I really don't think it has much of an influence. I mean, look, we were always going to have, let me say this. In 2017, I remember people talking about this. People, again, monster is the only word for it. Monsters would take that kind of videography. I'm not going to get into it too much for the one person who's younger in the audience. They'd take that and they'd upload it onto the blockchain. And so there were these concerns about, oh man, people are putting CP on the blockchain. So obviously Bitcoin's going to be deemed, the whole blockchain, because forever is going to be deemed that and you're not going to be able to run it. It was FUD, it dispelled. It's terrible. I mean, obviously don't put that trash on the blockchain. But Bitcoin is not about that. Bitcoin is about currency. It's not about who funds it. It's about what it is. And so long as it stays true to what it is, and for me, the biggest concern is it staying quantum resistant, which is something that we need to advocate for as a community. If it stays quantum resistant, then I don't really see that being a problem at all. Now, it is FUD. It's not helping the short-term situation because it is a very strong FUD narrative. But, yeah, it's just, I don't really see it being this big end of Bitcoin event because Epstein funded some of the developers. The developers dang well should not be taking funding from him. And, for all I care, those developers ought to just, lose support and people not vote for their updates or whatnot. But again, the thing that I'm encouraged by is that you have hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of billions of dollars worth of mining power put into Bitcoin, and that mining power has to vote on anything and everything that gets updated. The developers cannot push out an update without an overwhelming market consensus. All right, let's read a little bit more chat. Really appreciate you guys tuning in. But yeah, that's my take on the Epstein thing. I've been watching it and reading about it. I'm not really concerned about it. Let's see. Watching Bitcoin right now, looking very weak. I mean, the fact that Bitcoin, like I said, the fact that Bitcoin is going through this correction and stopped out at the 0.236, that's concerning. That's concerning. I do also have word, and I will say this. I do have word that many of the market makers that are kind of behind the scenes, they would buy so much Bitcoin that they're not going to let it go below 50,000. I don't really expect Bitcoin to go below 50,000. I'm prepared for it to go below 50,000, but I'm not expecting it to go below 50,000. I don't get into any trouble until Bitcoin's below 25. I'm good. If we drop down to 30,000, I'm fine. I'm buying, right? And that level keeps going down every day as we continue to prepare for bear market. Money is agnostic. That's a good way of putting it. Yeah, money doesn't care about who funds it. Bitcoin is a so long as the technology is not being updated in a way that is contrary to its own principles, it doesn't care one way or the other. So let's just watch the dip here. Don't know how far this is going to drop, but we'll watch it. Put it on the 5-second chart. What is there to update on the Bitcoin blockchain? There might be some tiny optimization to take advantage of, better hardware, but that's about it. The main thing that I keep pushing for that I want people to pay attention to, and this is extremely important, you need to listen, and you need to listen very carefully. We need to push for quantum resistance. Adam Beck doesn't think that it's going to be a problem, and Adam Beck is a great person to ask since he shows up in the white paper, but the bottom line is we still need to work on quantum resistance. That is an issue that needs to be solved, is quantum resistance. And it is a potential issue in the future because if quantum does get strong enough, it could crack Satoshi's wallet even if everything else is updated. Because theoretically, a quantum computer could reverse engineer the private key from the public key, and Satoshi's public key is public. So, I mean, you have a million Bitcoin dump on the market. It crashed the price, but so long as the protocol was updated in such a way that we're not concerned about quantum anymore, it wouldn't necessarily be the end of Bitcoin. we do need to push for that. Like, we need to push and push and push and push and make a big stink about quantum resistance, because we have to, you know, it's really the only threat vector to Bitcoin is quantum. That's really the only thing that I can see that would stop Bitcoin from going to 10 million. Like, my future scenarios, and this is why I'm so heavily invested in Bitcoin, is either quantum cracks some wallets and just destroys the narrative on Bitcoin, or Bitcoin goes to $10 million. And I think it's like a 5% chance quantum cracks anything. Like, that's not going to happen. And also, you know, I used to be of the opinion, oh, well, if quantum cracks Bitcoin, it's going to crack everything else. Not necessarily. There's a lot of things that are safe from quantum that are already updated. But the hard thing is to get Bitcoin updated, because you have to get all the miners to agree. Because that, like, 90% threshold is, in this case, kind of the problem. You have to get everybody to agree on a quantum resistance update. And we might not know we need it before it's too late. Bitcoin's making fresh lows right now, dropping down to $86,248. At some point, I'm not going to speculate on where. I have no idea where it's going to be, but at some point, Bitcoin will have a relief rally. It'd have to be pretty gargantuan for it to turn the market around at this point, because this ship is definitely moving in the downward direction. At some point, you will most likely see. At some point, Bitcoin will most likely see a bounce, but it's going to take some time. I don't know where it is. I have no idea. But what I do know is that if Bitcoin drops down to 76,000, I'm buying. That's what I'm doing. I'm buying. Yeah, this is, Jerome just kind of painted the picture of the problem here. NASDAQ is down 450 points, and NVIDIA is down 3% the day after the best earnings ever. They had $57 billion worth of earnings in a quarter. Annualized, that's almost $250 billion. Their profit was like $20 billion. Insane profit. Like, I forgot what the number was. It was nuts. It was like $25 billion in profit. Absolutely insane. And so, yeah. So let's kind of back up here and talk about something else. Let's freshen it up a little bit. I want to talk about what the next year looks like, because a lot of people right now are afraid. Drop a 1 in the chat if you're afraid. You're on the internet. You're hiding behind your screen name. Nobody's going to know. Let's just see it. Let's see it in the chat. Who's afraid right now? Who's freaked out? I will be the first to let you know that I have been through 2 bear markets, the first of which Bitcoin dropped 80%, the second of which Bitcoin dropped 77%. I have watched my net worth go down by over $1 million in a bear market. I know what it's like to go through a bear market. I have been doing content on this channel for over 8 years, and I've had to learn a thing or two about how to make sure that we stay safe. If you're afraid, I'd like to help. Let's first talk about why you got into Bitcoin in the first place. Then let's talk about what next year is going to look like. Why did you get into Bitcoin in the first place? The reason you got into Bitcoin in the first place is because there's only a couple of reasons why Bitcoin wouldn't go to $10 million a coin. The first of which is quantum cracks it. Okay, so Bitcoin could 130x from here, or it could go to 0. I'd say that's a pretty solid risk to reward ratio. Jeb, where are you getting 10 million from? Bitcoin could go to $10 million in 15 years and still have a smaller market capitalization than what gold's market cap will be in 15 years. It's going to 10 million if it survives. If Bitcoin doesn't die, it's going to 10 million. It's going to 10 million in maybe not 15 years, maybe 20, maybe 25. It's going to $1 million in 10 years. I fully anticipate that. Fully anticipate that. The reason that we're getting into Bitcoin is because it is the first technology that allows value to be stored based on not a government, but based on the laws of physics. You do not have to worry about dilution in Bitcoin, because 20 million of the 21 million Bitcoin that will ever exist are already in existence, and some are being removed and destroyed at all times because people are losing them. So Bitcoin is at this point, and especially by the next halving, already a deflationary currency. And so when you invest in a deflationary currency, you end up basically having guaranteed returns over time. Chip, you can say that. That's terrible. You're going to get in trouble you're going to get in trouble with somebody for saying guaranteed returns. Nothing's guaranteed, but what I can tell you is that when a wealthy person wants to make money, they basically do one thing when it comes to investment. They invest in scarce assets. There is a reason why billionaires buy farmland, they buy coastal real estate, they buy gold, and they invest in their own companies because they are scarce assets. So here is the next 15 to 20 years for you. Either Bitcoin goes to 1 to 10 million a coin, and you make 12 to 120x your investment from where we are right now, or in the very small chance, I'm going to give it less than 10% chance, Bitcoin goes to 0 because of quantum. Those are really, in my opinion, the only two scenarios forward that I see. And you're going to see a lot of FUD in this bear market. The Bitcoin's going to zero. You're going to see a lot of FUD of saying quantum's coming, and so everybody's going to move to Zcash. We have the same narrative every single cycle, and it never materializes. Different altcoins will do well. But so long as Bitcoin does not get cracked by quantum, it's going to $1 million a coin, then it's going to $10 million a coin, then it's going to $100 million a coin. Jeb, you're insane. No, I'm really not. It's not really so much about Bitcoin growing, because at some point Bitcoin's growth will basically stop. It's about the dollar dying. It's about the currencies that it's denominated against going to pot. Bitcoin has an extremely bright future. We have seen 16 years of bullishness over and over and over again. And that's not something that's going to stop anytime soon. So, as we go into a bear market, be not afraid of these corrections. They were always going to happen at some point. Different people tell you different timing. Sometimes we're right, sometimes we're wrong in the timing. We get it right, we get it wrong. But corrections on Bitcoin are always going to come. That's part of the way a market works, especially a nascent market like Bitcoin. It's only 16 years old. U.S. stock market is like 150 years old. And so it's not something that we need to be freaked out about. This should not scare you. If this scares you, this means that you are either over-leveraged, that you are undercapitalized, you have not enough cash, you don't have an emergency fund, your income isn't high enough, you're living off of your Bitcoin too soon when you shouldn't be, something. 50, 75 years from now, if Bitcoin is still alive, it's worth $100 million a coin. In 50 years. In the last 50 years, the dollar has lost 98% of its value. That's basically the same thing as me saying it's at like 3 to 4 million per coin in today's money. If the dollar's still around with the kind of inflation that we've seen, that's what you're going to see happen. Or it goes straight to zero. So you just really need to ask yourself, do you think it's going to zero? If not, you know what to do. So right now, Bitcoin is honing in on 0.786, 85,000. This was our next target. This was the first target we had after Bitcoin rejected off of 94, was a drop down to the Fibonacci. Fibonacci's will very rarely lead you astray. If you actually use them, you'll understand how powerful they are. 0.786 at 85,000 is the next major target. If we break below that, then the next major target is 75. It's really that simple. So what do we do next year, right? What do we do next year? Well, to figure out what we do next year, we really need to figure out bear market bottoms. Who's seen this chart? Who's seen this chart? Oh, Bitcoin follows this uptrend, so it'll follow this uptrend. And then if it does, it's going to go down to $30,000 in the bear market. Could that happen? Yeah. Will it? Probably not. Unless some major player blows up, unless you see like Sailor or Coinbase or somebody massive explode, this is probably not going to happen. I am prepared for this because I believe in the principle of worst case scenario planning. I'm fine if Bitcoin goes to $30,000. I'm fine if Bitcoin goes to $25,000. If you're not, fix it. The bull market support, resistance that we flipped support that we said started this bull market was 25,236. I want to be able to weather a storm down to 25,236. If we drop down to this uptrend, we drop down to 30,000, right? If we drop down to the 200 weekly moving average, which has happened before, right? We broke the 50, so then we, in history, have come down to the 200, right? We dropped down to it right here. Let's go ahead and remove these. We can see a little bit better. Bitcoin has dropped down to this gray line, which is the 200, right? That 200 is sitting here at 55. We're still way above it, so it's still going to come up pretty steep. By the time we get down there, it'll probably be at 60 if Bitcoin did what it did last time, and it dropped 20% below. Let's say it's up here at 60, or up 20% below. Okay, the bear market bottom's at like 50. I do not see Bitcoin going below $50,000 in this bull market, in this bear market. I really don't. I see a lot of institutional bid at 75. By the way, a lot of that institutional bid is leveraged bid. So if they buy at 75, they're going to fight tooth and nail to defend it. Now, that does present a risk factor. I want to point that out. I want you to be aware of that. That does present a risk factor. A lot of this bid down here at 75 and 60 and everything is leveraged bid. So if you start falling below 60, it does get catastrophic. It does get catastrophic quickly, which is why, once again, we engage in absolute worst case scenario planning. A lot of these big players are going leverage long at 75. They're going leverage long at 60, and they're like, if it goes below 55, we're screwed. But they don't think it's going to go below 55 because they're going to manipulate it higher. They're going to literally drive the market down there, leverage long, then drive it back up. It's the biggest swing trade in the history of the world that you don't know about because you don't talk to these people like I do. So what you're going to see happen is that Bitcoin could drop down here to this moving average. The moving average right now is at 55. Here in a few weeks, here in a few months, like next summer, it'll probably be up here at like 59, 50, or 60 or so. Bitcoin drops down here to test this, which there's a good chance it will at 60,000. Might drop a little bit below it, down to 50 or 55. You know, at that point, big players are hurting, but they're not necessarily bankrupt yet. And then at that point, that's where you're probably going to see the bottom. Now, we've talked to you extensively about why I say that Bitcoin is going to go to 57 to 75. Most likely. That's, again, and I want to be a little bit more. I want to be a little bit more careful about saying this is what's going to happen. But these are our forecasts. These are areas that Bitcoin could drop down to. 57,000 is the 0.618 on the entire bull market thus far. It also represents a drop right back down to that 200 weekly moving average, and the 0.618 sits a perfect 16% below the previous all-time high. If you'll remember, our last bear market bottom at 15,000 sat 20% below all-time high. So in a sense, if this was our all-time high, then we can run numbers to extrapolate where is this level compared to this market, where is this level compared to this market when we compare this market to this low. That makes sense? If this is the bottom of this top, then where is the bottom of this top, right? That's how we do analysis. That's how we do technical analysis, right? And so a few of the characteristics of this bottom, it dropped back down to a Fib level, right? We dropped back down here to the 0.786. You can see right there. But we also dropped back down to about 20% below the previous all-time high. Bitcoin for a time there was at 15,000 below the previous all-time high. That was capitulation. And at that point, that's where you saw that final drop to the downside of FTX blowing up right before it went for a run, right? You had to see that last capitulation. You saw 3AC, Luna, everything go down over here. You'll probably see somebody go bankrupt soon. I'm going to pause on that. You might see somebody go bankrupt soon. I'm hoping it'll be a lot less people than we saw in the last bear market because a lot of exchanges, a lot of players are a lot better capitalized than they were before. But it is something that we need to be very careful about, right? If you see a bankruptcy, if you see somebody force liquidating, it could drop Bitcoin lower here. So anyway, what we saw in this cycle was Bitcoin drop 20% below the previous all-time high, right? If we saw a drop below 20% below the previous all-time high over here, that'd be a drop down to 55,000. That's why I say that I'd be surprised. It's possible, but I'd be surprised if Bitcoin went below 50. I'd be very surprised if Bitcoin went below 50. And think about it like this. The bottom between 3,000 and 15,000 was 376% higher. The bottom between 15,000 and 50,000 is only 200% higher. You understand what I mean? So like if Bitcoin drops down to 50,000, that's an incredible entry. And that would mean that Bitcoin only had a bear market of 60%. We saw a mid-cycle crash over here of 52%, 53%. So I'm not forecasting a 77% bear market. I don't really expect Bitcoin to drop 77% down here to 28,000. That's not what I see happening, although that's what this chart over here would say. This chart over here would say that Bitcoin is going back down to like 29,000. That's what this chart would say. What I'm anticipating, because of the growth in the space, is not so much that Bitcoin goes down to 29,000, but again, I am prepared for that possibility because we don't know what's going to happen, and you should be too. I don't want to hear any of you guys going bankrupt because Bitcoin dropped down to 29. You need to be ready for that, okay? You're going to lose a lot of money on paper, but I don't want you going bankrupt because Bitcoin went down to 29 if it does. But anyway, Bardazon just said in the chat, just like returns are diminishing, losses are also diminishing. Yeah, and that's what we're anticipating, is that the returns have been diminishing, so the losses will be diminishing. We saw in the last bull market a 2,800% move, or about a 2,300% move or so. In this bull market, we saw about a 750% move. So I'm not anticipating the same size drop when we didn't have the same size rally. Again, this is what people behind the scenes think as well. So where's the bottom? Well, in history, the bottom has been basically here at this cross, this death cross between the 50 and the 200. If you were to plot this forward, it's very difficult to do. I mean, this is really getting into high speculation territory. But if you plot these two moving averages forward, they're probably crashing and meeting each other once again, kind of sometime next year. So it's possible that they don't meet. It's possible that they do. But we want to start pretty vague and generic and then kind of zoom in. We are anticipating that Bitcoin is most likely going to have some kind of bottom. I'm going to cautiously say sometime next year. As far as getting more specific about that, it's really a little bit too early to tell. But right now in the short term, Bitcoin is doing exactly what we anticipated it would do, which is it's dropping back down to our first bear market support zone, which is $85,000. And this is going to present a level of support that I expect is going to be quite strong. And the reason that I think $85,000 is going to be quite strong is this is the very top of where I'm hearing institutions are setting bid. And it's interesting that we're basically right there right now at 86. We're pretty much right there. Most institutions have the tops of their bid sitting right here at about 86 to 86.5. So I do expect some bounce here because large players are planning on buying in this exact zone. That's what we're hearing. We're hearing big players wanting to buy between 60 to 75. And there is some bid at 85. It's not as much, but there is some. There is some. Okay, so what we want to see happen here is we want to see you guys succeed. I want to see you guys make money because here's the thing you have to keep in mind. You don't get wealthy in the bull market. You don't. I do my best to tell you guys things I did right and things I did wrong. One of the things I did right is I bought a bunch of Bitcoin right over here. It was technically speaking a very good entry. One thing I didn't do right is I bought a bunch of Bitcoin up here that's underwater. That's fine. I'm going to round trip it. Buying the dip. I got cash, right? I'm going to buy the dip. I'm going to round trip this Bitcoin that I bought up here. Always planned on doing it if I had to. And then I'm going to buy more down at 50K. I would love to buy like 5 to 10 Bitcoin down at 50 to 57,000. That would be my goal. I would love to dump like $500,000 into Bitcoin down at $50,000 to $60,000. That would be something I would love to see. That's what I would love to see, is for that to occur. So the first level of support that we talked about here is $85,000. The next major level of support that we're looking at below that, is $75,000, and that could happen. Let's kind of compare the beginning of the last bear market to the beginning of this bear market, shall we? The last time that Bitcoin entered into a bear market, we saw that it started with this capitulation below the 50, and then it also became exacerbated when we fell below the 0.618 Fibonacci level right here off of the last cycle run, the last impulse to the upside. This was the line in the sand just a little bit below the 50 to confirm the break below the 50, right? Because we had this drop over here, but if you'll notice, Bitcoin dropped below the 50 over here above 0.618. It didn't go below 27,000, which is why Bitcoin didn't go into a bear market. But when we did go into a bear market, it began, and you've seen people like Cohen and myself and many others talk about this, it began with a drop below the 50. It got confirmed with a crash below the 0.618 Fibonacci on the last impulse to the upside. This is why when Bitcoin dropped below 50, I said there's still a chance, but it's looking dicey. Those my exact words, was dicey. And then when we drop below the 0.618, that's where crap hits the fan and Bitcoin's probably going into a bear market. What ended up happening after we broke below the 50 is we actually had about as large of a leg after it as we did before it. Before we hit the 50, Bitcoin dropped $20,000. After we broke the 50, Bitcoin dropped $15,000. And there was a bounce and an uptrend and a back test of the 50 that took a few months to occur. We rejected off of it for the last leg down, and we basically had this A, B, C correction to the downside, and then Bitcoin just kind of went into accumulation from there. It was a very fast bear market. When you think about it, I mean, Bitcoin's 72% drop. Basically, all of the actual drop took place in less than 8 months. And so that's probably what you're going to see happen again. You're probably going to see something very similar. Bitcoin's going to find support somewhere. I don't know whether it's going to be at 0.786 right here, right? I don't know if it's going to be here. I don't know if it's going to be at 75, but at some point you're going to see a support. You're going to see a back test of the 50. The higher we bounce and rally up to back test the 50, the better. That means the shallower the bear market, right? But then we're going to go lower, most likely. So we dropped $23,000 into the 50. We've already dropped $17,000 on the other side of the 50. So this leads me to believe, and this is a prediction that we want to make, short-term bottom will be found between 85K and 75K. This is what we're anticipating. This is the exact way. I mean, the reason that we love technical analysis is because this is exactly what we see the institutions and the big players doing. They're using these numbers. This is the way that they're looking at the market. There's going to be a short-term bottom, most likely found between $85,000 and $75,000. It will most likely not be the bottom of the bear market, but it will probably lead us in a back test up to the 50. If we break back through the 50, then that was our bear market. Seriously. If we reject, which is more likely, then we're probably going to have an impulse to the downside about as large as the first impulse. If you remember over here, this first impulse was negative 36,000. This next impulse was negative 32,000. So let's say that Bitcoin drops down to 85,000. Let's just say that we just put a bottom in at 85K. We just watched it happen live. Let's say Bitcoin dropped $40,000. It's going to bounce up, back test to 50. You'd probably anticipate it dropping another $40,000 or so. Hey, look at that. $60,000. That's that zone we're talking about. That's why at this point I'm anticipating $57,000 to $75,000. That's our prediction. Our prediction, and it's vague. It's a broad zone because we really need more analysis to figure out, to kind of like hone that in, where it's too far out for us to get really specific. But bear market bottom between 57 to 75K. That's what we think. Possibly a bit lower if someone blows up. This is technical. Like, this is technical and based on current fundamentals. If things change, it could go lower. Like, it really could. I mean, if you see Bitcoin, if you see like a giant exchange, for the sake of, I don't want to use any names, but if you see a giant exchange go belly up, it could go lower than that. I mean, Bitcoin could go down to the 40s if you saw a big exchange blow up and dump thousands and thousands of Bitcoin onto the market. But this bear market, and this is what I'm happy about. You know, I'm actually really excited that I got to flip bearish because I have at my disposal a lot more analysis to explain what the market is doing. Bitcoin is following this bear market very closely. I didn't think it was going to. Cards on the table. I mean, I didn't think it was. I thought we'd bounce at 94, but I also told you, if we stay below 94 for more than a few days, I'm going to flip bearish. We stay below 94 for a few days, I flip bearish. Right? This drop and correction is mirroring this drop and correction very closely. But here's the other thing. Here's another thing you need to keep in mind. And a lot of people are talking about this. QT. QT is ending. I know. Believe it or not, I'm aware. This is a key area where this current bear market that we're going into is different than this one. This bear market happened in an easing, in the end of an easing era. And this is where I don't think that you're going to have a bear market this deep. It might technically track with it as far as the way it interacts with moving averages, but I don't think it's going to be as deep. This bear market was really kicked into high gear when we started getting announcements that quantitative easing was ending, and as it started falling over, Bitcoin did too. Right now, quantitative tightening is ending in like a week and a half, which actually makes this drop look a lot more like this drop, which means that the next bull market, if we do see QE, depending on how large it is, might look like this. See the comparison there? Go to a cleaner chart. Oop, not that. You saw QE ended here. Sorry, QT ended there, QT ended here. It's very possible that all of this was akin to all of this. And what we're seeing happen right now is akin to this, fundamentally, akin to this technically. It's following this technical printout, but it's this fundamental setup. And both of them, by the way, were excellent investment opportunities when you hit the bottom. So, I mean, you can look at it however you want. Cohen talks quite a bit about us being here before we're going here. Very possible. Once again, the only reason that I don't think that would stop Bitcoin from going just absolutely parabolic into $1 million a coin in the next 10 years is if quantum cracks it. Like, and I'm not just talking like releases some wallets, you have a patch and like it gets resolved and you have a couple year untimely bear market. I'm talking about like it renders it unusable and it cannot be salvaged. Like, I'm not even saying that quantum cracks some wallets. I think Bitcoin would survive that. I really do. If it gets updated and it is still a usable protocol. Unless that happens, Bitcoin's tracking with all these cycles. And so I think that Bitcoin, what it's going through right now, is going to do something somewhere in between both of these corrections. This correction was 77%. This correction over here was about 52%. I'm not saying it's going to do something in between those size of corrections. I'm not saying it's going to be like in a range between. Actually, that was a 72% drawdown too. I don't think it. I'm not talking about the size of the correction. I'm talking about the actual macroeconomic background environment of it. I do think that what you're going to see happen is very similar to what you saw over here when you started seeing expansion. Now, it's probably not going to be this fast because you're most likely not going to see $4 trillion added onto the balance sheet in like 3 months. It's going to be slower than that. And it's going to contribute to Bitcoin's diminishing returns, but it'll help to stabilize it. And this is what institutions are really looking for, is more stability. And if you guys want stability, I want to give a big shout out to Stampseed. If you guys have not already, make sure to purchase some Stampseed products. And the reason that you should is because when you stamp your seed phrases into titanium, they become fireproof. If you hold Bitcoin and you're trying to hodl it through a bear market, and you've survived a bear market or two with your Bitcoin, and then it doesn't survive your house catching on fire, then what was the point? What was even the point? So I highly encourage you, if you have not already, to make sure that you purchase Stampseed products by going to stampseed.com/Jeb, I believe is the link. The link is in the description box down below. Make sure that you do that and do it quickly, because I want you guys to be safe in the event that your house catches on fire. I don't want you to lose all of your hard-earned Bitcoin as a result. All right, so let's recap. Over the next few months, you're going to see a lot of, it's so over. Oh, Bitcoin's dead. What am I going to do? You're going to see a lot of that. Here's something else you're going to see. You're also going to see a lot of hate towards the analysts. I'm seeing a lot of this. People have lost money and they want a scapegoat. And so I'm fine. I can be your scapegoat. I mean, literally in chat, Michael Stanley said, Jeb is doing his best. He doesn't have a crystal ball, but it's nice ragging on him. Peter P19 said, true, that's why we're here, right? Yeah, I mean, hey, rag on me all you want. I don't care. Like, I don't know. But yeah, your charts are telling us you're in a bear trap, right? Hey, like I said, I'm prepared for bear market. I'm not like going into a massive short. I'm buying the bottom if it shows up. If it doesn't show up, fine. Whatever. Like, I'm not going to get trapped out. But, yeah. Yeah. Let's read some chat. CPI will be higher and no rate cuts. Probably. Yeah, I'm not convinced at all that we're going to see a rate cut. And if we don't see a rate cut, this is a very good point. Next month, if we don't see a rate cut, that's probably going to be pretty bad for the market, because the market started pricing in a rate cut and it didn't happen. So that's something that you do want to keep in mind, is no rate cut, not the best look for Bitcoin. Not the best. Not the best look for Bitcoin if we don't see that. Does anyone else see that huge head and shoulders forming? Oh, you're talking about this. Yeah, it's an idea. Let's look at it. That head and shoulders would point Bitcoin on a price target down to 22,000. I have found that when you start building structures that large, they typically don't play out necessarily the way that you think they will. They typically do not play out exactly the way that you think they will. And the reason that they don't is because you end up getting into diminishing losses as well. So yes, I do believe that we are, I don't want to say that we're in a bear market, but we are technically in a bear market since we're below 94. We broke below the 50. We had a chance to bounce at the 94 level. We didn't. Instead, we rejected off of it. And you see this cascading selling pressure. And again, most of this is because a lot of big players have bid down starting at 85, right? If we don't bounce at 85, next stop 75, because that's where all the buy orders are. Bitcoin doesn't bounce unless there's buy orders. So yeah, this whole bull market was during high rates in QT. Yes, and you're going to see rates are obviously lower now than they were a few months ago, and quantitative easing is coming. It's going to be slower. It's going to be like 20 billion a month, which sounds like a lot, but it's really not. You're going to see like 20 billion a month of quantitative easing. So you need to be, that's going to most likely help things along. Give me 1 second. My poor wife is extremely sick. I'm going to have to go here in just a minute and check on her and help her out. We got a stomach bug the other day. I guess she caught it, so poor lady. Guys, please be praying for my wife. She's always going through something. It's so sad. It's so sad. So, let's read a little bit of chat, and then we're going to continue moving along here. Just started watching Landman. Would recommend Jeb. I've heard about it. I'm interested. I might watch it. I watch it. You're putting it on the wrong lines. Then what do you think the right lines are? I'd love to hear your opinion. It's both a bull market and not. It's both a bull market and not a bull market. It's Schrodinger's market. Pretty much, yeah. But seriously, Jeb, Bitcoin bottomed from 40 to 43K from TA, right? I would estimate higher than that. If it goes down to 40K, it's probably because somebody went bankrupt. If somebody explodes, then yeah, we could go below 50. If nobody explodes, if nobody blows up, you know, then Bitcoin's probably not going below 50. If somebody explodes, that changes things, right? I mean, we saw, like, for example, when Bitcoin, let's get all these lines off our chart for a second. When Bitcoin was in the last bear market, we dropped down here and we were pretty happy being 60% retraced from all-time high. And then 3AC went down. Celsius went down. All of them went down, right? And that's what drove Bitcoin in this last leg. And then over here, you know, Bitcoin was down 58%, dropped down 72%. Okay, great. You know what's interesting about that level is it was actually just a beautiful technical level. Because it was actually, after 3AC and Celsius blew up, it was actually the 0.786 down here at like 18,000, 17, 18,000. It was a beautiful level. Beautiful level. Right? Beautiful. Gorgeous, gorgeous level. And this looked like, okay, great. The bear market bottom's in. Pedal along. Drive down. People aren't buying, probably because they had insider information that FTX was about to explode. Went to this pattern. FTX explodes. We drop down one last level. Without anybody blowing up in the last bull market, we would have dropped down to the 0.618, which was at 28,000. Notice that. Then 3AC and Celsius blew up. That's what drove us below 61.8. So again, very similar mentality. If nobody blows up, and that's the issue. If nobody explodes, then the bottom at 57,000 makes a lot of sense. If somebody does explode, a bottom at 40,000 makes sense. So that's really the key, is does anybody blow up? Have we learned our lesson from the last cycle or not? If not, I mean, you can fall just about as far as you want if people start exploding, if the sentiment goes like that. But if nobody explodes, bottom's probably at 57,000 or higher. If nobody explodes, bottom's probably above 57. If somebody explodes, bottom's probably below 57. But either way, I don't care who explodes. Sailor explodes, Coinbase explodes, Bitcoin will recover. Because Bitcoin is agnostic to all of them. Bitcoin don't care about any of them. They really don't. They care about Bitcoin. Bitcoin does not care two craps about them. Bitcoin does not care at all about them. You understand what I mean? And so, Bitcoin will recover. Should be an excellent generational buying opportunity. It's really not something to freak out about. Oh my gosh, what about if Sailor? What about if Coinbase? So what? So you spend another 6 months in a bear market, you get more time to accumulate. I mean, come on, there's going to be a next Sailor. There's going to be a next Coinbase, if that happens. People saying, what is Sailor's liquidation? He doesn't have a liquidation. That's what you have to understand. He's not using, and we've interviewed Sailor. I've talked to Sailor. He was on this channel, like way back over here, like in the beginning of the last bear market. He was on our channel. The vast majority of Sailor's debt is not Bitcoin backed. There's also a very small amount of it. Let's go to strategy. Enterprise value is $67 billion. MNAV right here. This is not accurate anymore, I don't think. I need to check and see if that's accurate. It might be. I don't know. Let's see. Leverage 15%. So yeah. Enterprise value. Let's see. Where's their Bitcoin MNAV? Right here. $56 billion worth of Bitcoin. They have $8 billion worth of debt. Leverage is 15%. It's very low. And you also have to keep in mind that the $8 billion of debt is not all against the Bitcoin. The vast majority of it is right here. The aggregate notional value expressed in USD, assuming a current FX rate of our outstanding perpetual preferred stock. That's the thing that you need to keep in mind. So they're not. They didn't go to Coinbase and pull out a Morpho loan. Like that's not the way that worked. They are holding Bitcoin with some debt, but the vast majority of it is just selling stock. as far as I've said for a long time, MicroStrategy above 1 MNAV doesn't make a lot of sense. But now that it's come back down, it's going to be, MicroStrategy is going to be fine. So what we're also looking at here is a pretty decently sized bounce on Bitcoin. We're going to have to wrap it out, but I am pretty excited. Yeah. And one thing I will say, guys, is I sold a lot of our altcoins a while back. You've probably seen that I haven't talked about altcoins much. Alt season's gonna happen, but I don't have a clue when. I'm sick and tired of waiting on it. I just want to be fully transparent with you guys. I liquidated what altcoins we had like 2-3 weeks ago and just dumped it all into like cash and into paying down debt to prepare for the bear market. I just am not, in case it happened, to hedge our bets. I'm just tired of waiting on it. I would rather just make more money and dump it all into Bitcoin. I'm not saying I'm a Bitcoin maxi. There's a lot of money to be made in altcoins. But, I mean, somebody in chat, Deadeye Ridge, is saying, Jeb, you need to address your alt videos and predictions. Dozens of them majorly missed. Yeah, that's why I'm not doing that anymore. I haven't done that in a while. And the reason that we're not doing that is because the altcoins have seriously let us down. They've seriously let us down. It's been miserable. I'm not happy about it at all. Alt season will happen at some point, but I'm not interested in trying to call it anymore. It will happen at someone. It will happen at some time. It will happen at some point. Alt season will happen. When? I don't know. I'm sick and tired of trying to figure it out. I'm just dumping everything into Bitcoin. Just honestly, I really am. I'm just over it. I'm not a Bitcoin maxi in the sense of I don't think that it's impossible for altcoins to rally. I do think that you're going to see an alt season at some point. But I'd rather just focus on Bitcoin and stocks and cash and yeah. So who knows? Who knows when alt season is? I'm sick and tired of waiting for it. There will be at some point. But no, you're right. I mean, we've talked about a lot of major targets on altcoins in the past. We have. I told you several years ago, ADA will go to $10 by the end of the decade. It's possible. I haven't made that call in years. I'm kind of curious to see whether it'll happen or not, but I've not made that call in years. The last time I talked about that was years ago, like 4 years ago. Because frankly, I'm sick and tired of waiting on alt season. You guys have probably seen I've gotten a lot less bullish on altcoin. I told you months ago, I haven't bought altcoins in like 2 years. So, yeah. I mean, there are some altcoins that will emerge victorious and they'll be enormous. And I trade alts, right? Because they're volatile. But you couldn't have shared with us sooner that you sold your alts. I probably should have. I probably should have told you guys that. I will give you that. We've been going through a lot of health stuff lately, and I probably should have shared that. So I'll give that to you. It was mainly a couple of weeks ago. When we started falling below 100, I was like, yeah, if Bitcoin's going below 100, that's basic. That's when it was. It was about a week ago, a week and a half ago. So it's not too far in the past. If Bitcoin's going below 100, alts are going to bleed faster than Bitcoin. So yeah. You told us 4 months ago you bought ICP and CAS. I talked about CAS. I said I was interested in buying it. I never actually bought it. ICP, I did buy some, and I sold it. Some of them were at a loss. Some of them were at a profit. I was like, I don't care. I'm sick and freaking tired of looking at it. I look at Bitcoin all day. That's what I'm about. So I'm gonna buy Bitcoin. I'm gonna put my money where my mouth is. I'm sick and tired of waiting for alt season. I'm not saying it won't happen. It will happen at some point, but I'm not interested in looking for it. So there you go. People want me to talk about alts. The reason I've been silent on alts is because of that. And somebody said alt buy season. Yeah, me saying that is could be the start of alt season, right? So yeah. All right. What I will say, and this is what I told someone on the phone yesterday, is that when alt season happens, will probably be when you start seeing a massive amount of QE. You're going to need to see extreme confidence across all markets before you start to see before you start to see alt season. That's why I think it'll happen. But I don't know when exactly that's going to happen. I don't think that like $20 billion of tiny QE that we're going to see next year is going to be good enough to do that. All right, guys, if you haven't already, I highly encourage you guys to make sure to check out 2Bit. Also, this is one of our favorite exchanges. They are growing massively right now because of their fantastic user interface. They're also growing massively because they're absolutely huge in Asia. This is like the Bybit of Asia, and they're making a big movement into the United States markets. They've got like $5 billion of volume. They're huge. 2bit is actually just enormous. And I highly encourage you to sign up. If you haven't already, make sure to check out the link in the description box down below. There's always different kinds of sign-up bonuses and rewards and trading competitions and games that are going on. You can see that there's 4 million active traders on 2bit. In the last 24 hours, $45 billion of trading volume. Huge exchange. Highly encourage you to check them out with the link in the description box down below. Highly encourage you to check them out. Let's see. All right. Guys, if you haven't already, I also want to let you know that NordVPN is doing a Black Friday sale. Make sure to check out NordVPN with the link in the description box down below. The reason that you want to do this is because you want to stay safe and private and secure while you're browsing the internet. The bottom line is hackers and thieves are trying to steal from you. So if you have not already, I highly, highly, highly encourage you to sign up for NordVPN, because when you do, they're going to help keep you safe. It's that simple. And so when you sign up with us, you're going to be able to get a major, major discount, 4 months extra, and you're going to get 75% off. So instead of spending $324 on the monthly plan, you're going to get on a 2-year plan like almost $250 off. So highly, highly encourage you to check all of that out with the link in the description box down below if you have not already. Guys, we're going to wrap it out just a little bit, but want to go ahead and read some chat. People are really having a conversation in the chat about the altcoins. Here's the thing. I think that altcoins are going to go very, very, very parabolic. I love Chainlink. I like Solana. I like Ethereum. Each of them have things that I don't like. ICP is interesting. I like Cardano. I think that those coins are going to go to very high price targets. I think you're going to see an alt season at some point in the future. So I'm not saying that these are not going to go up. What I'm saying is that I'm tired of waiting for them. I'm tired of waiting for it. I'm tired of watching it bleed. So at the end of the day, that's my opinion on altcoins. They will have their day. I'm not interested in waiting for it, to be totally honest with you. Not interested in waiting for it. We got a big old fight in chat. This is funny. I think it's funny. But Jeb, how is your family doing? They're doing well. My wife is not feeling good, so I need to go pretty soon here and go check on her. So yeah. What about that free trading course? I'm working on it. We've been in the hospital literally 8 times in the last 2 weeks. That's where I'm doing my best to get that built, but it's on its way. It's on its way. I don't want to give you a launch date, but it is coming. I gave you my word. It's coming, and I'm very excited for it too. We've got a lot of really cool stuff to teach over there. All right. It has been delayed, and I'm sorry for that. We've had a lot going on for sure. All right. Let's read some chat here. Yeah, guys. All right. I love you guys. I hope you enjoyed today's stream. If you did enjoy today's stream, make sure to hit that like button. Subscribe to the channel. If you've not already, make sure to follow us on X over at CryptoJeb. We're posting charts over there all the time. I would love to see your smiling face on X. Really appreciate all of you guys for tuning in. If you did enjoy today's video, hit that like button. Subscribe to the channel. Stay tuned for more content. Stay tuned for today's afternoon video. And before I go, I do just first want to thank each and every single last one of you for watching, as always, and I will see you guys in the next video. Peace.
Oh, I got a real good feeling.